all the way from Azeroth. This is Kingdomcast with Leia and Serenity.
Happy New Year, EK!
She's Leia.
And he's Serenity.
And welcome to Kingdomcast.
We are not only celebrating a new year, but this year we will also be celebrating the 5th anniversary of our community. This year we will honor our anniversary in various ways, so stay tuned. So, Sari, how was your holiday?
Holiday was good. I spent a little bit of time with family. It's nice and quiet.
Did you get any fun gifts?
No, just a couple gift cards here and there. I won Insanity TI. That's kind of cool.
You won one?
Yeah.
You're the second person in the guild to win one.
I know, it's kind of crazy.
Because Wraithar won one.
Yeah.
That's insane. Was it the same thing?
No, it was a different thing. Mine came from EVGA. It should be here tomorrow.
That's exciting.
I know, it's great.
Now you have no excuse not to raid.
Maybe. We'll have to see. What did you get?
I got some pretty cool things. I got a couple of Funko Pops, and I got the Shadow pet from the Blizzard store.
Awesome.
I have a Funko Illidan and all my Star Wars ones because I'm a Star Wars fanatic. So, yeah. Did you do anything fun in Guild while you were on over the holidays?
I didn't do a whole lot. I was able to get some gear. Did some Mythic Pluses, but, other than that, really stayed to myself.
Won 100,000 gold from Sin.
I did, and I'm not going to let him forget it. He should probably stop gambling.
He really does. I feel like we need to start a Gamblers Anonymous, and Sin is definitely going to be the first member, and I understand that Cell Stores members need to do that as well from a previous podcast with Haunty.
Yeah, I think so. We got enough to join. I think we should do something.
Yeah.
Did you do anything fun in the guild?
Actually, yeah. On New Year's Eve, Belisyma put together a random normal Antorus run, and it was super fun. I actually got to raid with my husband, which never happens. We don't really play together. And people were drinking, and it was super fun. And we actually have a new Deadly Boss mod sound from that. It was pretty hilarious. It was Zeus making some kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like a weird bird sound. So.
Okay.
It was you had to be there. It was really fun.
Interesting.
So what are you looking forward to in 2018?
I don't know. I think we're going to have a lot of fun events coming up for our anniversary, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and we actually added a new run. I feel like we're always adding runs, but Snowmantle is doing the last minute Monday run, and I believe it starts at 8 server. Obviously it's on Mondays. And it was normal Antorus. I think it's going to be switching to heroic soon. So yeah, there's literally no excuse for anyone to never get Antorus done in a week in this guild.
Yeah, I think they made it a little easier. Compared to the previous raids here. So I think everyone should be able to do it.
Easier, maybe in terms of Tomb of Sargeras, but we will hear about this later on in the podcast from different people from different teams, how they feel about Tomb and Antorus and etc. So. I don't know that it is easier than all of them. It's just there's not a ton of soaking.
Well, at least TOS.
TOS was terrible. Absolutely terrible.
The best raid ever.
No. Just stop.
Okay.
So we have some really great guests lined up for you guys today, so stay tuned.
I'll stay tuned.
Welcome back, EK. Our first discussion tonight is going to be regarding Toys for Tots, which we just had in December, our 24-hour Stream-A-Thon. And our first guests are Inri and Sin. Inri is our first returning guest of the podcast ever. Yay! She is the Director of Community Coordination, and she spearheaded this year's 24-hour Stream-A-Thon.
Sin was previously our Director of Community Coordination before he stepped away from the game, but now he's back, and now he's a part of Eternity, one of our new Mythic raiding teams.
Hello.
Thanks for having me back again. This has been really exciting. I kind of feel like maybe you shouldn't have me on again for 6 months or something. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
You're banned after this.
We'll put a ban on you. Yeah, you're banned. So, Inri, this was your first time heading the 24-hour Stream-A-Thon. Was it exactly how you imagined?
I think with anything like this, of course, a lot of it's going to be kind of how you imagine it because there's so much planning that goes into it. And I had participated last year when Sin kind of started this whole thing. So I kind of had an idea, definitely no idea about what all went on as far as the planning and stuff like that. Went into it totally blind in the sense that we hadn't done something of this scale yet. yet. Obviously, we did Harvey a couple months ago. It sounds kind of crappy to say, but I'm kind of glad that it happened. Obviously, not glad that, so many people were displaced and there was something terrible that happened, but it kind of gave me an ability to kind of like test the water, see, right, and like see kind of how everything would work out. I would say overall, though, it pretty much went kind of how I expected. It kind of was what I imagined, I would say.
She did a heck of a lot better than me last year.
Oh, don't say that. It was just very different than how it was last year. This year we were really, I guess, blessed, so to say, that we had so many people helping. Last year it was really just kind of Sin and a couple people, but we've been able to kind of really create like an awesome team of people who are willing to help and have, so many great ideas and are so highly involved. Just an example of that is that we had a team of people 24 hours the entire time, like just doing the spreadsheets, like stuff like that we didn't have last year. So we're really fortunate this year.
So, Sin, can you give us a little bit of insight of how this all started?
So last year, coming around Christmas time, and I just had my firstborn daughter, and I got to thinking, we have this big community, and a lot of people aren't as fortunate as us, and there's a lot of kids out there who, don't get Christmas presents. So I just thought to myself, it's like, I bet if I could put something together, we might be able to raise a little bit of money for, Toys for Tots. The first year, I set the guild goal at $500. And I honestly didn't even to make that. And the amount of support we got last year just absolutely blew me away. It was very much worth me losing hours upon hours of sleep and doing everything by myself. I had some help from people in Guild. One really important person, Lily, formerly part of the Guild, and she recently passed away, was a very big help. So I'll always remember her for that. And I think every time this year comes around, I'll always remember her for that. And it's nice. And I came back on this time because I wanted to do it again. And there I was at a point in my life to where I could come back, and I was glad to help out Henry.
Yeah, it was really incredible that that Sin was able to come back. I had reached out to him, I think, right around the time that I took over the position, and then again when I knew Toys for Tots was coming back, and we're really lucky to have him back. So that's been, honestly, other than all the money that we raised, that's probably the greatest thing that came out of this year, I would say, is him being back, because he's been super involved in the community and always has done a lot of stuff. So we're really fortunate that that's happened. But I can kind of speak to that too, trying to help people that are less fortunate. Like, I didn't really grow up with a whole lot, but something that my family always did was we would always buy like the Christmas Barbies or whatever, and then we would always donate a bunch of those every year. But the thing was when I was a little girl, I wasn't ever allowed to have one to kind of like teach me, it's okay to like give stuff that you want to other people so that they can have something, right? That was kind of like the whole idea. And I just think it's really important to like give back to the community, like in general, like in any possible way that you can. And it's like something so pure as this. Kids, around the holidays that don't have anything for whatever reason, like just that means so much, like to a kid that doesn't have a whole lot. I was never on the receiving end of that, but I can imagine, you know what I mean? Like I was close enough to get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely makes sense.
Throughout this whole thing too, kind of just to go a little bit off of that, like it gets exhausting, right? Like doing this for 24 hours, like Sin said, it definitely gets exhausting. But like what I always kept in my mind was like the face of like those kids that are going to get those toys and stuff, and have a good holiday season as a direct result of what we were doing. It's just really important to kind of keep that thing in mind. Like obviously don't push yourself to the point where, it's detrimental to your health. But what I kept telling myself was I can sacrifice these couple months of time of planning. I can sacrifice those 24 hours of sleep or whatever it may be, like for that end result. And that's kind of what kept me going, honestly.
Yeah, that's what kept, I think, a lot of us going, and eating the copious amounts of caffeine.
And falling asleep in the parking lot of McDonald's.
I will not have Red Bull anytime soon after this. I couldn't get the taste out of my mouth for like 2 days. It was so gross.
Oh, gross. So there was a lot of going on in the background of this event. Can you kind of go into more detail as to the things that are done to make sure the event runs smoothly?
Sure. Like I said before, this year it was very different. We had a full team of people, and I was just so grateful that we had these people that stepped up and like really helped out, throughout the whole process. Like one person to mention that I think deserves mentioning is Zebu, because he created all the spreadsheets, all the back end stuff that we used. Like he made all of that, and he did the same thing for Harvey, and that requires maintenance, right? He created all that, maintained it, and then we had people working off of those spreadsheets, the spreadsheet coordinators, and we had a full team of people doing that. I don't want to go through and name every single person because there's just so many people, like we'd be here for quite a bit, right? But so we had those people, and we also had people whose sole job was just moderating Twitch chats, and Serenity was one of those people, and it's just like little touches like that, stuff that like we're able to offer this year that we didn't have last year. Like it just makes a world of difference. It's really incredible. So yeah, we also had like a media outreach team as well. We had a lot of support from outside guilds like Method, Limit, Seraph helped support us. Just, I could go on and on. There were so many people, but we got a lot of feedback like from the community, a lot of support from, our friends in the community and the WoW community and stuff like that. So it was really awesome. I was really, really pleased with how all that turned out.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to add to, like obviously like there is this huge team of people who are coordinating all this behind the scenes, but I think what's really important and what needs to be highlighted the most is that we could not do this without all of our volunteers, which primarily, obviously, of course, came from Eternal Kingdom. We tried to kind of keep it to our own community this time and just have support from outside of the community. But we could not do this without our key carriers. I think we had around 100 people, 100 volunteers. Some of them, many of them were up the entire 24 hours as well. So it cannot be understated. Like this was not just us. Like this by no means was just me. Like I could not do this without, people rallying behind me and without all of these volunteers like willing to set aside their time, and put forth the effort as well. So definitely huge shout out to them, all of our key carriers and stuff like that. And it was cool because just like with Harvey, we were able to get quite a few like big prizes donated. Like we had a BlizzCon ticket that we gave away. We had a DX Racer chair that we gave away. Some game time, tons of raffles. Just it was really, really awesome. Like how, everybody comes together and like we have support obviously for Toys for Tots and also for ourselves. So just wanted to mention that too, because I think that's really, really important.
And a big shout out to our everybody that donated, willing to give money to children less fortunate. We wouldn't have anything to do. So thanks to them as well.
I did the same thing that I did during Harvey, and I think that Sari did it too, where I'd see the number was like uneven. So I would like donate $1 to get it to like 40. And then someone would donate another random number. It would just piss me off. So I'd do it again.
Rip.
How much did we end up raising?
Our final total was 2110.92.
Nice.
Which was a good amount, I'd say. Good little chunk.
Oh yeah.
What does that bring our lifetime giving to?
Oh, and yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, because this was the most exciting part for me, like in regards to the community, aside from, being able to give back. Like as a result of this fundraiser, Eternal Kingdom has now raised over $10,000 for various charities, which is just like, it's mind blowing to me that we've been able to do something like that.
It's crazy what a group of people playing an online game can come together and achieve in the real world.
Yeah, like that's over $5,000 just this year, which is like just phenomenal.
Trying to explain this to my parents was quite hilarious.
Nice.
Like they didn't understand it, but I was like, no, this is what we're doing. All I just said was it was Toys for Tots, and they're like, oh, that's so nice.
Trying to explain this to my wife was a challenge. Why are you up for 24 hours? What is he doing? Giving money to kids.
It was so much fun.
That's all it's about.
I just want to give a big shout out to Inri. She worked tirelessly to get this done, and it was super successful, and I can't wait till next year's. Or I guess this year's.
You're going to make me cry.
I'm glad we kind of have a little bit of time to take a breather.
And it's really good to have you back, Sin. We're glad to see you.
Welcome back.
Oh, yay. I'm glad to be back.
Thanks for coming to chat with us.
Yeah.
We will actually be back, EK. We have a couple more people joining Inri. It is her group Crossbros.
Bye.
Welcome back, EK. We still have Henry with us, and joining here are Z-Boot, Arth, and Chocolate Mix.
Inri is a Resto Druid on Onslaught, a cutting-edge team, which is currently 5 of 11 Mythic in Antorus.
Z-Boot is the media director of Eternal Kingdom. He creates updates and maintains the guild website, Discord, and Twitch. He is the guardian druid for Onslaught and father to Gutted, our guild mascot, who you can find on our website.
Arth is a returning guest as well. He is a Brewmaster Monk and the raid lead and ambassador for Onslaught.
Our final returning guest is Chocolate, who is a Fury Warrior for Onslaught.
And together, this group is known as Crossbros. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
So your group had intended to run for the entire 24 hours. However, you hit a bit of a snafu with Z-Boot losing power. So in all, how many hours did you guys end up running?
It was probably about 15, I want to say. I don't know.
It was already like 24 for me.
Yeah, that's you.
I feel like it was around 15 just because like when I got off, you guys were still playing.
It was pretty late. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning, I think, for me, and I'm East Coast, so it was a while.
I went 15 because I think it was like 9 hours before the end of it, so that looked it.
Yeah. We did a good
It was
chunk.
like 12 my time.
Yeah, we had planned on going the full 24 hours, but his whole building lost power, so we decided to call
Entire
it.
town.
Yeah, we didn't want to keep going without one of the Crossroads, right? So we just decided to call it there.
How many keys did you run as a team?
Yeah, we ran 26 total in that time, counting once we upgraded and continued running and everything.
What was the hardest key you ran?
All of the ones containing Z-Boot.
Yeah, all of them.
I don't really think there were any that were particularly hard. I don't know. What do you guys think?
HOV with Sin.
Oh God, yeah.
I just realized we ran that. Never mind my thing. Okay, that's the one hard key we did. HOV 16 with Sin.
By far,
Yeah.
that was the hardest one. Like, as we had spoken about before, like Sen had just come back to the game, and it was just not good. Like, it was a tyrannical week too, I think. Yeah, it was a tyrannical week too, I think. And Herja on tyrannical is just a nightmare. Like, it's not fun. That was our hardest key.
How many times did he die?
A lot. Then we got to God King's Gold, and he would literally one-shot multiple people at once whenever he charged. So he had to like study his turns and their form and everything to survive those charges.
So you're saying that Sin was a hard carry?
A very hard carry.
Yeah, the hardest carry.
Didn't I go Brewmaster for that key for some of the bosses too?
I think so.
Yeah, you did. You did for Skullwall, so you wouldn't get a
Yeah.
one-shot anymore, because as Windwalker, you had nothing to survive the charge of, so you went out and went Brewmaster for that boss.
So this question is for all of you. What was your favorite key you ran?
Halls of Valor.
Well, it's not Halls of Valor. we have like a favorite key, like as a group. I think Chocolate is probably the only person that kind of disagrees, but we're pretty unanimous in that we really love Court of Stars keys for whatever reason. I don't know. It's just a fun dungeon, honestly. Like even when we're just doing keys on our own time, like we greatly prefer doing Court of Stars over anything else. Wouldn't you guys say?
And Upper Kara.
Well, Chocolate, what's yours then?
It's not necessarily that I don't like Court of Stars. It's just being a warrior. I had to farm that place so many times to try and get a ring at the start of the expansion.
That you're just tired of it.
I'm just, yeah. It's a great dungeon, but, I mean, I don't have, like, a particular favorite.
He's a good sport, though.
Anyone with the cross bros.
Aw, love you, bro.
Aww. So, Henry, what was your favorite moment?
I think my favorite moment, this is probably going to sound pretty dumb, but a couple days before we did the fundraiser, I made a joke in guild chat that if somebody ran a 20 on time with a proper carry, I used the phrase, I would eat my hat. And people really liked that for some reason. I'm not really sure why everybody thought that was so funny. I didn't think it was as funny as it became, I guess. And my team lead, Nye, he screenshotted it and like kept it going as like an ongoing joke. So I wore a Christmas hat, like a Santa hat, during the fundraiser, and then after that, I just kind of never stopped. Now whenever I stream, I wear like a different hat. I think that's kind of like my favorite moment, or my favorite like selfish thing that came out of this was just like that kind of ongoing joke, and it kind of gave me like something funny to do like on stream that people seem to enjoy, as dumb as it is.
That was hilarious.
I think I've bought like 3 or 4 new hats since then because of it.
Still haven't eaten any of them.
Yeah, I still have not eaten any hat, but the offer's still there. Maybe for next year, maybe somebody will do it.
We'll make it happen.
I mean, if you run a 20 as a crossbows, we'd have carried after a 20, so that counts.
Make me DPS.
Other than that, though, I would say like my favorite moment is just like hanging out with them, honestly, and like doing something like this. Like this isn't the first time that we've done this. We had the same team when we did Harvey and stuff like that, and we generally, anything that we do in the game, we pretty much for the most part do together. So it's just really nice, like being able to do, you know, stuff like this, like giving back, like with your best friends, you know, people you really truly enjoy.
Zebut, what was your favorite moment?
Probably like just before we started the streams, because the event ran onto my birthday. Amy told me to open the birthday present she got me, and it's this mark with gutted on one side and then World's Best Dad on the other side. Like I opened it just before, and then just during the entire event, I just constantly just make sure I have that. I was only using that mark and like lifting up to the camera whenever I could.
Aww. I knew you were getting that.
So make sure to clean it up. I clean the hand every day so it doesn't actually lose the picture on the front.
Arth, what was your favorite moment?
Well, I had already been awake for like 9 hours before the event even started, so I was exhausted by the time we actually started, and I don't remember most of it. So my favorite moment was the Halls of Valor 16, because that's the only thing I can remember.
Yeah, he fell asleep like halfway through, like almost fell asleep.
Just waiting
You're
on
just
that second
trying to talk to him, and
win.
you just get like grunts back.
So is it hard to play while sleeping or awake?
Awake.
He actually starts his nap when raid starts, so
I sleep during raid all
that's
the
why
time.
we have such a good raid lead. That's the secret.
That makes sense.
I'm not sure if I should be insulted.
They actually sleep talking to us.
So, Chocolate, what was your favorite?
Just the whole atmosphere, like getting prepared and staying up as long as you possibly can and run all the keys. Just a overall fun experience. I enjoy playing WoW, so getting more time to play it, run keys for good causes is a double win.
Well, I enjoyed running with crossbows when Inri finally remembered that I had a key. She ignored me for about 2 hours.
Well, the thing was, is like made it clear that I didn't want people to stack keys, so people wouldn't just pick and choose like, oh, let's hoard all the Court of Stars keys or like something like that. So like we would have people that would come to us like, hey, can you run our key? Can you run our key? And there were just like so many people that kept asking, and I kept forgetting that like you were next. I felt really bad about that. We got there. That's what counts. I mean, I knew she wasn't going anywhere, so we'll just go with that.
It kind of reminded me like Jimmy Kimmel, where he like always says like that he ran out of time for Matt Damon. Like it kind of felt like that was the ongoing joke. Like we're never running Leia's key.
He kept saying, lay after this one, and like we ended the key, oh, let's do this key quickly. But oh, Leia, oh, after this one, and then over and over.
What makes running keys during this time more enjoyable than other times of the year?
I believe it's just the ability that as gamers that we can, even doing activities that we would normally do anyway, setting up, grouping up, doing keys, we can still in the end give back all the people who donated via streams or whatever else, whatever other means. Just makes it so much more worth it. You definitely feel the spirit of Christmas and stuff like that during the event.
Yeah, I would second that. And kind of like what I had said before, like this isn't something that we just do like for the holidays or just, for events or anything like that. Like we're hanging out pretty much all the time anyway. So it's not really unusual for us to like group up and do something like this because we're generally finding a fifth anyway. But with this, we were just able to actually like properly carry somebody and like make somebody's day. Like honestly, like people were so appreciative to get like 10s and 15s done that, there were so many people who had never even done past like a 5. It's awesome. Like you kind of feel like a badass, like, being able to like get 10s and 15s done for people. And they're like, wow, like you guys are so good. Like, how are you able to do this? And it's run of the mill for us, right? Like that's not anything really special, but then you kind of realize like the scale of it. So it's just, I don't know. It's really cool. It's a really fun experience.
So you must have run a lot of keys with people that weren't even on our server or guild then.
Like looking at the sheet right now, I think around half of the keys we ran were not on Proudmoore, and from the half that were, I think like the majority of those were EK, but so I'd say around like a third of the keys we ran were probably EK.
Did you find out from the people who were not on our server how they found out about the event?
Well, I think a lot of people found out because they went to other servers and spammed in trade chat and stuff like that about us doing free carries. I know a lot of people found out from like Method, Limit, Seraph, people like that, or guilds like that, like tweeting for us, and spreading the word and things like that. So I think just kind of organically, like it just kind of spread across social media and across other servers with Zate's help.
So Inri, you mentioned that Zate was spamming a lot, and I know he got banned. I understand you got banned too.
Yeah, that was probably the most frustrating thing about this whole process. Zate went to other servers and advertised that our carries are 100% free, no links to our donation page, nothing like that. Purely just, hey, we're doing free carries on Proudmoore. Here's this link. Come sign up if you want to do a free carry. We never ever once mentioned in game at all that we were raising money or that we wanted you to donate or anything like that. Like we were very clear and very specific that the carries were 100% free. So let me just kind of like lay that out. So like I said, he went to other servers and did that. I did it only on Proudmoore from my main character, which is Henry, obviously, saying like, hey, we're doing free carries, whatever. I guess people didn't like that. There was a lot of speculation about what had possibly happened. I don't want to pinpoint exactly one reason because we have no proof of why both of us were reported, but both of our accounts were silenced for about 3 days. We both appealed it. His was denied. Mine was also denied. They basically told me I was silenced for abusive language, which is really, really frustrating and really annoying because now there's a strike on my account until it's lifted, if it's ever lifted. And it's just frustrating because it's like we did this to give back, right? Like we had no malicious intent in this. I didn't make any money off of this. I never even touched the money. We were just trying to do like a good thing for a good cause. And unfortunately, we had consequences for that. So I would say the only negative that came out of this was my disappointment in Blizzard that silence, that appeal, and that silence was not lifted. That was really frustrating and really, really disappointing.
I got a message from Blizzard. They said they'd repeal it if you ate the hat.
So, Henry, what would you do differently next year?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, I think there's always like small ways that we can improve and stuff like that. Just maybe greater organization. Probably start on the media and outreach earlier than we did this year. I think that would probably be the biggest thing that I would change, honestly, because we reached a lot of people, but I think we could reach a lot more. And kind of like, with the silence and stuff like that, obviously us advertising in trade chat and general chat is not going to be the route that we're able to take this year. So we're going to have to find new creative ways to kind of spread the word. How I plan on going about doing that, I'll think about for the next year.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming. It was great to have Crossbows on, and thank you to several of you for being returning guests.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Welcome back, EK. Now we are joined with 3 members of various raid teams to discuss Antorus a month in.
Rudon is a Resto Druid and Heal Lead for Force, a cutting-edge team who is currently 6'11 Mythic in Antorus.
Thanks for having me.
Magic is a Frost Mage and is a team lead and raid lead for Umbra, which is a Mythic raiding team who is currently 4 of 11 Mythic in Antorus.
Hello.
And Alessandra is a Ret Pally and is the team lead for Pantheon, a Mythic raiding team who is currently 1 of 11 Mythic in Antorus.
Hello, good to be here.
So let's kind of just start down the line. Rudin, when did you join EK?
Don't hold me exactly to it, but I think it was like May or June of 16. Came in with a Zealot team and have been with EK since. Really happy with the guild, and it's been a great run so far.
How about you, Magic?
March of 2017, I actually was one of the building block members of Umbra, who was sort of on the ground floor of when it got announced, so I was there kickstarting the brand new team at the time.
And Allie?
I started basically a little after EN came out, so that would have been, November 16-ish? Somewhere in there. Started on Titan team.
So how are you liking Antorus so far, Rudon?
You know, it's the total opposite of the previous tier, right? Everyone was stacking for soaks, and now we're all running around like crazy in spread and handling all kinds of stuff there. And, you know, I like the variety. I like that we're on the move for things. Of course, I'm a Resto Druid, so I might like that more than others, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I like the variety.
Yeah, we have it easier that way.
Allie?
Agreed. I definitely like it a lot better. There is less need to class stack, which I thought was kind of not exactly fair for a lot of other classes. Less need for immunities and soaks. I mean, they're always good to have, of course, but a lot more versatility.
I mean, did anybody walk in and like see Garathi and it was like, are you kidding me? The first thing is a soak mechanic?
100%.
It didn't bother me as much because I knew it was just going to be the one boss. Like, just knowing already that it was just going to be the one, that just made it so much happier. Like, okay, just one, and then we're done.
That was Blizzard's troll right there.
Pretty much.
The Magic?
Yeah, I'm glad of Tomb of Soak Garrus is over. I love Antorus immensely more, especially as a raid lead, where I don't have to get angry at one person not soaking X thing on any of these 6 fights that required said soaking. I mean, yeah, there are like the minor complaints of, oh, it's undertuned. I honestly think that's just a knee-jerk reaction that people are used to, like the ridiculous difficulty of TOS in terms of like punishment. I think Antorus is not undertuned. I think it's actually pretty appropriate for most cases anyway.
No, I completely agree.
So you guys don't miss TOS?
No, not at all.
You know, TOS, I mean, outside of a lot of the soak mechanics, see, I'm always for the challenge, so I love the challenge, you know, to strap down and really have to put some effort into it. But, you know, I'm always excited for the final boss, Kill Jaden. You know, you get past all the redundancy throughout the entire tier there in Tomb. Kill Jaden was a hell of a lot of fun, you know, there's a lot going on, and it was like the pinnacle of, you know, you got some difficulty there and you got some variety. I don't know, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed especially that boss fight. I don't know if I enjoyed the entire tier, but
I think the thing that I like about Antorus in comparison to TOS was in TOS, if one person died, you were pretty screwed. Whereas in Antorus, I don't think it really affects you as much.
Maiden. That was like the worst fight ever. And the prep time to get a pull in, especially for Resto Druids, right? You put all this prep time to get a pull in, and then you might have a lot of things going on in the first 30 seconds, and all of a sudden someone does something and the whole raid wipes. And every pull was like within 30 seconds you'd wipe.
Yeah, that was not fun.
What are the most noticeable changes between TOS and Antorus?
I think we pretty much covered the less soaks.
Yes.
The punishment. Yeah, I think you can kind of recover from mistakes in this tier in Antorus, but, you know, it was really hard. And there's a lot of bosses in the previous that were really hard to recover from if you had some mess up. And back, you know, going back to Tomb, if you had a mistake, punishment got greater and greater. 30 seconds to a minute went by, and ultimately it led to a wipe anyway. And it was just super punishing, and you knew it was going to come back and bite you. Here, you can kind of recover from it. You can kind of get some help from the healers or help from the tanks, or there's things you could do now that you could not do before.
I think outside of the soaking, I think there's a lot more flexibility in terms of how you're able to tackle an encounter versus especially the last 4 or 5 bosses of TOS, where there was only like one realistic way that you could actually tackle it strategy wise. So everyone just need to get it down, just like how everyone else had done it, especially anyone that did Avatar. Like there was no like really second option for tackling that fight. Versus at least so far from the videos I've seen in my personal experience and Antorus, is I see guilds doing all sorts of different ways. Especially, I think a good early example is Fellhounds, where you can treat a lot of the mechanics, specifically where you need to like stack and then move along with the fire. You can position dogs in different ways. So I like being able to have flexibility of the fight because it allows me to tailor it to how my team interacts with mechanics. And okay, so we're not great at doing it this way. Can I adjust it in this direction that's going to function better?
Yeah, I agree on that as well. They've eliminated a lot of the cookie cutter strats that you had to go by.
Agreed. And it, again, going back to the fact that there's so much versatility, there's less need to class stack, and you don't have to have this thing to make it work. I mean, the only boss I think really requires a particular class, and it doesn't even really require it. You can totally get by without it, but that would be a DK on Agrimar. Like, it's definitely much easier if you have one, but it's not required.
So what's everyone's favorite fight so far?
I haven't had it yet. I've always been the favorite of the final boss in a tier. It's always been the one, you fight all these encounters to get to the final boss, which is supposed to be the pinnacle of that tier, right? It's the one that Blizzard's kind of trained you on how to get up to. And I still think it's always been. I mean, I go back to Gul'dan, I loved it. I go back to Kill Jaden, I absolutely loved it. I think I'll love Argus the Unmaker getting down to that point.
For me personally, I guess I could probably list one for Heroic and then one for Mythic, because I feel like I may change my answer by the time we make it all the way through. So, I guess from Heroic, I personally really enjoyed Kingorath as much as my team hates that fight. I like being able to select which robot is going to be more efficient to kill in terms of, like, if you can only kill 2, choose one you have to deal with. And then, personally, I like keeping track of the rolling balls that go across the room. It feels very tenuous. I don't know. It feels like you're on edge the whole fight. So for me, it's just an adrenaline kick. Now, out of Mythic so far, I really enjoyed Portal Keeper, even though some people would say it's a pretty simplistic fight, especially since like the Mythic changes are mainly just new things for Portal people. Everyone else that's doing downstairs just do Heroic but better and rotate like AoE stuns, interrupts, all that. So I think that was my personal most enjoyment fight. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting at the moment.
I don't have a whole lot of Mythic experience yet. We're working on Hounds right now, so that's pretty fun. From a Heroic standpoint, I kind of really like Argus just because it's so different. Like, you got Phase 1 is completely different from Phase 2, and then Phase 3 again is completely different. It's like 4 fights in one, and you really kind of have to be on top of the mechanics on all 4, otherwise it's a wipe. So it's just the excitement of having 4 completely different fights in one is really what I think, for me, makes Argus a really fun fight. Of course, when we get to Mythic Argus, assuming we get that far, I hope, I may change that answer as well.
I think it is really cool. I do like that how it has like the phases. Like, there's always been phases, but the phases are just so different in where they put you. It is really cool. Before we started, I was saying that my favorite is ENR, and I actually think that I'm sitting around thinking about it. That might be because my raid leader hates it, so it's like the internal portion of me that wants to troll Wraithar.
Awesome.
So, what classes do you think are suffering the most this tier?
Well, I have to go with every healer class behind a Disc Priest. Disc Priests have gotten so OP, and you don't see very many logs on them because not a lot of people playing them, but they are definitely the strongest throughput healer out there. On top of that, you couple a bunch of DPS to go with. It's the only imbalance in the healer side that I see, and it's nice on the DPS side to see some classes come up, right? It's nice to see Feral come up and make some changes, do some pretty cool things. And I think, again, we go back to this particular raid instance, class stacking isn't as important ultimately at the end of the day, right? Everyone contributes in a way to get a full clear. I don't know if there's a class that can't contribute, and that's kind of a big deal. And whether that's some undertuning on the raid side that helps that out, or they just balance out maybe a little bit of the classes in a way that they can compete.
For me personally, Hunters aren't really getting to shine as much as they were in TOS, in my opinion. Like raw number-wise especially, but they don't feel as utility useful. So I could see people not wanting to bring as many Hunters this time around, especially since you can get a lot more use out of other ranged classes. I mean, obviously, there is almost at least one Warlock spec in the top 10 for every single encounter, so those are probably the most sought-after range these days, especially with the lack of soak needing to be done. Outside of probably Emnar, I don't see as much reason to have a lot of Hunters around.
I'm not really sure how to answer that question, but I would think that any class that doesn't have some sort of major cooldowns, I know everyone's got something, but there's certain fights where it just seems like anyone who's got a major cooldown is going to survive, and anyone who doesn't is kind of going to be in trouble. A couple of fights like Veramothras, sometimes I see some people having to run out for necrotic, and they get it once, not a problem. They get it twice, and they're in trouble, especially if you don't have a disc priest. I mean, same thing in Coven. When you get the pulse, it's pretty rough. Your healer's really got to be on point for you, otherwise you're going to die.
I feel like this is a dot stacking raid.
Oh yeah, this is the raid of multi-dotting for sure.
Well, we have 3 warlocks.
We also have 3 warlocks, and 2 shadow priests.
We used to have 2. We only have 1 now, but he's awesome. So shout out to Judas. There have been complaints that this tier is too easy. What are your thoughts on this?
For me, it's always been, some teams are going to just one-shot a couple mythic bosses in the beginning than others. It's definitely tuned with Emerald Nightmare, which feels like it's not a final tier for the expansion. It doesn't quite feel that way. There's a lot of build-up. And whether that was because the previous tier was just over-tuned and they had to under-tune a little bit of this one, you almost wish they swapped the tuning around, right? You're on the final tier, so you'll have, longer raid time here than you would in the previous. I think it's a little undertuned. Now, again, it may not be that way as we get later in, but definitely some of the earlier bosses could add a few extra more wipes on it.
I think compared to Tomb, it definitely feels easier. But if you were to compare it to like Nighthold or EN, I don't really notice much difference. I think some of it has to do with just personal learning. I know for me, I'm kind of a newer raider compared to a lot of other people. You start to recognize that there's really only a handful of mechanics that there could possibly be in a fight. There's going to be some weird crossovers that make certain fights more difficult than others. But I mean, after a while, it's just, a soak is a soak, a spread is a spread. There's just only so much that Blizzard can do. Once you get the basics down, is a fight really any much harder than any other fight?
Well, see, that's what Blizzard tried doing in TOS, where it would give you a lot of very simple mechanics, and then the mythic version of said mechanics is, okay, we're just going to stack all of the relatively easy to handle mechanics on their own, just on top of each other. So that's so much at once, they're trying to overload you, and that's kind of how they do it. And so they just create intentional bad overlap. Okay, this is normally an easy mechanic, but wait, it happens right after this mechanic, so it now makes it difficult. For me personally, in terms of the raw number scaling, it sort of depends. Like, if you're comparing it to TOS, it obviously feels very undertuned. If you're comparing it to raids throughout majority of the last 2 to 3 expansions, I think it's actually pretty on par with like the average.
So if the hardest should be at the end, should they have swapped it and should Tomb have been the last raid?
If we're talking about just the raw difficulty, I would almost say yes in a way, but I think Tomb was hard for the wrong reasons. It depends. How do you want to create the difficulty? Do you want to make just obscene DPS checks with very minor mechanics? So like a super version of Veramothras, where it's just a super high DPS check but very minimal mechanically? Or do you go like a pre-nerf avatar where it's just extremely high DPS with very punishing but relatively conceptually simple mechanics? Yeah, it depends. Like, where do you want your difficulty to come from? Do you just want a mess of things happening all at once, or do you want high numbers, or do you want all of it?
Yeah, and I get back to like Fallen Avatar and Kill Jaden, which I enjoyed. I don't know if everyone can say the same thing. Of course, I got it after nerf, right? And there might have been an argument that pre-nerf was just overtuned way too much, but synergy was kind of the name of the game those last 2 bosses. You had to have everyone working in unison to do jobs and to get them done right away. No one can carry people that weren't going to pay attention and look into those mechanics. Everyone had to be on point. And I kind of like that. I like how everyone's participating in every year. Everyone's participating in the healing throughput. Everyone's participating in the DPS throughput. Everybody also has to participate in the mechanic play. There is no carries. And so for me, Fallen and Kill Jaden were awesome and perfectly tuned by the time we got to them. You had to do some pulls to get in. I came back to WoW after a 3-year break for that challenge. There's a lot of games out there where you don't get that. And there's something about getting that boss kill where you hear everybody cheer and all that effort and everyone's just on point. That feeling, nothing beats it in the gaming world, not currently anyway. I'm hoping we get that coming in the last 2 bosses of Argus, but switching the tuning between what was more difficult, I think Argus definitely should have been tuned as far as what it was, because it feels like we already beat the hardest stuff. Now we're coming in here and it's like, well, that was it, so we're just going to kind of finish this up here and get in the next expansion, and it doesn't feel right with the fantasy.
What fight has been the biggest struggle for your team?
Going to be between ENR and Portals, I think, for us. And it might just be ENR. Our group had some opportunities. We've gotten a lot better, but it's handling a lot of variables at one time. And ENR is kind of that. A lot of things are going on. A lot of things have to be dealt with, whether what wave are you going after, how the composition works out for each wave. Also working with the 4 different parties that have to go to the ship and handle that as well. And based on how we plan that encounter and how certain people have got to be in the ship at certain times, because if you have them at the top, they got to be out of the ship during the time that the top needs their people. And so as a lead group, you got to plan that out. We had to micromanage that encounter more than anything. And for us, that was the hardest, getting that all laid out and getting all our raiders on point for it.
Coven for sure. It's just because sometimes you'd get a really easy overlap, and other times it was just nearly impossible. We'd have times where you'd have Norgannons coming out with Storm, and you'd get through your section of the wall, and you're looking for a safe spot, and crap, there's none on this side of the room.
That fight is horrible.
And as a melee, I hate it doubly so, because I've had times where I cannot reach anything at all. Oh, maybe a judgment cast. Yeah, for us, I would say, some days it's simple, it goes down easy, and other days, Coven is just unbearable.
I'm not looking forward to that on Mythic.
I don't think anyone is.
If you are, there's a problem with you.
Big first wall, I think, will be the Coven side, right? That'll be like, oh, we're down the last 3 bosses right now. This is real. This is getting real.
The joke is, okay, on Coven, all the melee are benched, right?
I did a lot of ranged recruiting. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, Whirling Blade's not a problem if you don't have any melee. I can hear your angry gripes from my team in the distance. For me, I always find it interesting when people say what their hardest boss was. For us, now I think we just had the God poll last night. We got Portal Keeper down last evening, and I think our total wipes ended up being like 25 to 30, which I was surprised because we spent way too long in High Command, mainly because where we struggle at as a raid is just don't run in mines. Just don't run in mine, guys. Stop. Don't do this. You're making me mad. Jokes aside, I think that was where we struggle the most. Unfortunately, I've been forced to put 5 healers on that, which I know can be a 4 heal fight, but 5 healers is just giving us the security to be able to run in mine. So do what we need to do. Now tonight is going to be our first night on ENR, so we'll see if my answer changes. I am in the progress of writing like a mile-long AA. Like, you're going at this time, you're going here at this time, and then hopefully everyone figures it out.
So funny you bring that up because I was putting guides together in my healing chat. I got the ENR and I posted ENR. You go read your own stuff on this encounter because I'm not posting any notes.
See, I'm super excited for that now. I cannot wait to get to ENR.
As a raid lead, I dislike super micromanagey fights where like I had to give one person like 3 jobs at just random times during the fight. Versus that's why I sort of like the simplicity of Portal Keeper. Like, okay, there's a few mythic mechanics going on here, but I can assign the same person every time, so it's consistent. That person is gradually learning their job. We don't really need to change the roles around, so it's just the same fight every time, so everyone has the same gradual learning curve. Versus where you go to like super horrible RNG fights where like it just feels like a different fight every pull. That is my least favorite. I hate lack of consistency. Some people say that makes it exciting. For me, it's annoying.
Wait till you get to the ENR DC bugs. Oh man, it's a mess. I always said that should be like a boss mechanic, right? If you don't soak this, you DC. And then you have to log back in.
I actually love that idea.
That would be so horrible.
Yeah, but that could actually get people to do mechanics.
That'd be hilarious.
Like,
Oh
that's
my
an
goodness.
amazing punishment. Like, you didn't do this right, you DC.
That'd be horrible. Sin would never be online.
We already have enough DC issues.
Yeah, we did too.
Especially that first week. It was horrible.
Yeah, it was.
Thanks for that, Blizzard.
So from best to worst, how would you rate this expansion's raids?
How many of us wanted to punch Gul'dan in the face? That's been like a big thing for a long time in the movie. He's the biggest boss that you had to think about in the movie, and Gul'dan's been around forever. I think that was the most gratifying is to see Gul'dan. For me, this whole expansion has been about Gul'dan, really, for me. And it was a hell of a lot of fun to do it. So I got to put Nighthold first. And then, of course, Emerald Nightmare right after, because that was a cool fantasy too, right? Is a dream's been corrupted. And I just enjoyed the fantasy part of it. And then comes, of course, probably Tomb and then where we're at now. Again, that might change as we finish this tier up. Just in the terms of fantasy, I really enjoyed the Gul'dan encounter.
I guess, yeah, personal favorite, I would put Nighthold. I thought there was a decent variety throughout the whole thing. None of the fights felt overly samey. I mean, don't get me wrong, I despise Botanist to this day, but I think as a whole, that raid was pretty solid. It wasn't too hard and wasn't too easy, so I think it was a good balance. I thought the aesthetics were interesting, the boss encounters were interesting. I guess as my second favorite, Yeah, Emerald Nightmare was like overly easy, but I do like a lot of some of the aesthetics were rather appealing to me. But I think for me, I'll go ahead and put Antorus as number 2 for me. And then I'll follow that up with TOV. Man, like I didn't get to do TOV Mythic, but I could tell just from the heroic that I had a lot of fun. And had I gone in there on Mythic, I thought it was pretty cool as well. And then from there, I'll put Emerald Nightmare. And dead last, I'll put TOS. I have no love for that raid.
Well, I first started raiding in Emerald Nightmare, and my first Mythic experience was actually Nighthold. So, I mean, for me, both of those were huge, not only in terms of a learning experience, but I mean, the storyline, especially for Nighthold, was really well done. The whole Suramar thing. So, Nighthold was definitely really huge for me, and the fights were a lot of fun. And there were some different strategies that you could do. Yes, most of it was pretty cookie cutter on how you were supposed to do the fights, but there was still a little bit of availability to do a little bit of this or a little bit of that. In terms of my least favorite, Tomb is definitely not one that I enjoyed nearly as much as any of the others, but TOV is probably my least favorite. I just could not stand the Helia fight at all. I was tanking back then and still kind of a little bit of a newbie to the whole thing. Like I said, I first started raiding in EN. Just TOV for me was definitely my least favorite.
I totally forgot about TOV too. And I definitely put that in the last as well.
I just didn't get it why like Odin was fighting us and it's like he's weakening you and then sending you off to fight stuff. It made zero sense to me.
I'm gonna test you in battle twice.
Yeah, it just made no sense to me. Let me break your gear and then I'm gonna send you over to die to whatever the heck Helia was.
Yep.
Well, you guys are all doing really awesome, and congratulations to all of your progress so far. And I am hoping that this tier is long enough that every single one of our Mythic teams can get cutting edge. I think that would be absolutely amazing, and I think they all deserve it.
That would be awesome too. The cutting edge amounts of teams that get it. It's a great thing to see. Like everyone's always cheering for each next team, right? So who's going to get cutting edge? All right, let's go for it. Let's watch it. And the amount of Force players that watched V going for their cutting edge was just really cool when they finally got it too. And a lot of us were streaming, and that just says a lot about the community too. It's a hell of a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, it's really good to have the teams support each other. I think a lot of O team actually watches my stream for Imperium. They've been super supportive, and I like to think that we are vice versa to them and to other teams too. So, but thank you guys all so much for coming on and discussing Antorus with us, and best of luck going forward.
Oh, thanks. Same to you.
Again, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back, EK. For our final guest, we have Belisyma. Belle joined Eternal Kingdom in 2015 and is the Guild Master of Endless Kingdom, which is the guild that houses our social members. Over the years, she has been a raider as well, most recently being a member of Imperium. Welcome, Belle.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So, how did you end up becoming a part of Eternal Kingdom?
I wound up being a part of Eternal Kingdom because of the power of Zayt.
Zayt has too much power.
I knew Zayt in another guild a long time ago. The guild was called Cognitive Dissonance, and it was aptly named because it was a guild of teachers. And generally, we don't think about World of Warcraft and teachers at the same time. So they had a program in the schools where they were actually teaching students history and literature and math using World of Warcraft as a tool. But they also needed a place to just be themselves. So they had a guild that was just teachers. I read about that and I asked them if I could join, even though I'm not actually a teacher, because I'm really interested in how people learn. And they said yes. I met Zayt in that same guild early in his WoW career. That was where he played. He was definitely advanced for them. When they raided, it was 10 minutes between pulls and generally quite casual. And Zayt was ready to get moving. So he had a vision and he took off and started Eternal Kingdom. And about once a month, he would ping me and say, "Hey, Belle, you ought to see what I'm doing here. Hey, Belle, you ought to see what I'm doing here. Hey, Belle, you ought to see what I'm doing here." And I finally caved and came over and took a look and fell in love with it. His vision for the guild and what he was doing, the way he was bringing the best out in people, I absolutely wanted to be a part of that. So he brought me into the guild as the Director of Player Relations was my first title. So I started in leadership from the beginning, but I found I was learning a lot more from the guild than I necessarily was teaching, and I really got a big kick out of that.
Zate can be very convincing, can't he?
Yes, Zate is a power in and of himself, and he's hard to say no to, but it's in part because the conviction he has in his thoughts and his vision is really entrancing, and it's fun to be a part of something that's bigger than we are. And I think Eternal Kingdom is bigger than the sum of its parts.
So when did you become GM of Endless Kingdom?
Endless Kingdom, I looked it up today, was established March 27th in 2016. And I was the Guildmaster of Endless Kingdom to start with. So we are working on about 2 years real soon.
And how many social members do we currently have?
I figure of the 500 accounts we have in Endless Kingdom that we have several people with alts in there to help run things and move things between the two guilds. We figure about 420 actual social members.
Wow, I didn't even realize we had that many.
Yeah, it's grown. It's been really, really steady, but we've grown a lot since we decided we needed Endless Kingdom.
Oh yeah, it's definitely needed.
So what's the importance of having social members in our community?
Social members in our community are part of the vitality that makes Endless Kingdom. Those that can do contribute by running keys, donating materials to our awesome banking program. We talk a lot about how social members can contribute to the raid teams through the bank and through the running of keys, but focusing on how they contribute to raid teams really misses the point because EK is more than a raiding guild. We're a guild that makes the world a better place, and we focus on making the game enjoyable for everyone. Our social members contribute through their engagement in the community. Imagine if you couldn't have your friend or your relative in the guild because they don't raid. If that were a rule, your time in the game would be less fun when you're not raiding because the people who are important to you miss out on all the activity that makes this guild great. So social members in our community are our friends and family. We have people who join who don't know anybody, but they've been around, they've seen us in streams, they've seen us in pugs, and they know that being a member of this community is going to make their life better, their quality of game time better, their quality of life is better because of it. It all ties into that vision of making the world a better place for our members and for the people around us. The social members definitely do that just by their existence in their engagement in the community.
I found out that a friend of mine, actually, we were sitting together at a wedding, and I found out through, I think, me checking Discord or something that she used to play WoW, and she came back, and she's not really, obviously not caught up to be a raider, and I really like the fact that I could still bring her in, and she could be part of, this amazing community, and she really loves it from, my discussions with her. So I love the fact I can bring people in who are my friends who aren't exactly raiders or who just don't want to or need to catch up.
We find a lot of social members actually wish that they could raid, and when their life circumstances change, they do apply to raid teams. So we have many people on the raid teams who started as social members. We have people who started on raid teams who are now social members. That's another wonderful benefit of this model is when your life changes, you don't have to leave the guild. If you can raid harder, you move up the raid tiers and find a team that is more challenging. If you need to back off how much you're raiding, you find a less challenging team. Or if you need to cut it out altogether, for instance, when I moved this past spring, I had to stop raiding. You still have a home in the guild, and you don't have to say goodbye to your friends just because your life changed.
We still miss you.
Thank you.
So how does one become a social member?
Becoming a social member requires having a sponsor and an application. So you apply through our website and fill out some questions, and that application goes to our social team who will then verify your sponsor and verify the veracity of your application. The sponsor needs to be a raid member, raiding team member, or equivalent. We have veterans in the social side that also can sponsor. So if you want to join the guild and you don't have a sponsor who's a Grand Army member, we recommend that you make friends with people in the guild and you find a sponsor. And we have avenues for that. For instance, the fun runs. Also, the social team has a short list of people who are willing to sponsor. So if the application is such that we really feel like the person would be a good fit for the guild, we're not going to say no. We're going to say, how can we make this work? Once the application is in and their sponsor is verified, the social team works to make sure that the new member gets gets integrated into the guild in a way that is less overwhelming. It's a huge guild, and joining such a busy place can be completely overwhelming. So we make sure that the new person knows where the calendar of events are, knows a couple of people to talk to. That's the purpose of having a sponsor. Make sure their sponsor is helping them get integrated into the guild and knows what is going on. Plus, we make sure that they have website permissions, they have Discord permissions, that they have Greenwall, which is our application that we use to talk between the 4 guilds. All of these things help the new member have a really great experience and enjoy the guild from the get-go.
We're so big.
We are very big.
Just a little.
Doesn't feel that way though, which is something that I always try to tell people. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, your guild is so big, like I feel like I'll get lost. But you don't feel like that. You don't feel like you're a tiny fish in a humongous pond. I never feel like I feel like it's as big as it is.
And Alessandra and the social team work really hard to help new members have that feeling of community and small family feel that this guild is so famous for.
Yeah, she does a great job, and so does her team.
We launched our Patreon recently too, and I know we're getting some sponsors from that as well.
So yeah, the Patreon is one more person who can sponsor. And again, the veterans are another rank that can sponsor. So it's not just raiders. In order to keep the integrity of our community, we needed to limit the number of people who were applying. It was growing so fast, and people joined the guild. Oh, Nate, new guild. Hey, 10 buddies of mine. Hey, come join the guild. And we found that when those people joined the guild, 8 of them would then stop playing. And so we just have a bunch of people who had not logged onto the game for 6 months and just have to clear it out again. We want people who are a benefit to the community and will benefit from the community. And that's why we require sponsors.
I think sponsoring is a good idea. Just because you have a little more checks on it, you're less likely to bring someone in who's going to be toxic if there's somebody who's already in the guild.
Yes, that does help with toxicity, and it helps because there's somebody who's taking responsibility for the new person. So if somebody comes in and is toxic, we're going to go to the sponsor and say, hey, what the heck? Why did you bring this person into the community in the first place? And because the sponsor knows that their reputation is on the line, they're not going to bring in a toxic player.
So recently there's been a push to get Endless Kingdom some of the achievements that members in Eternal Kingdom have. How's that going so far?
So we're almost done. Cabin Boom, Dernan, Marion, and Rothrick have been working with Enri and the events team to get all of the achievements. We have everything we were going after except the Guild Pandaria Dungeon Hero and the Guild Glory of the Draenor Raider. I know the team is working on it. I think next Saturday they're looking at the Draenor Raider. Oh, and the one other thing, we still need a max level Panda Rogue. So if anybody out there listening has a max level Panda Rogue, we'd love to temporarily invite you to Endless Kingdom to help us out.
Or you could just race change and then race change back. So something else that you work very hard on is to ensure that everyone feels like they are in an inclusive and safe environment, which is a major contributor to why our guild is so successful. Can you touch on that for a bit?
Yes, that's one of my favorite topics about this guild is the safe environment that we provide, the non-toxic environment, and not just Endless Kingdom, but Eternal Kingdom as a whole. Raiders tend to build toxic environments, and raiders in Eternal Kingdom are here because they don't want a toxic environment. So this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Our goal is to make the world a better place. The vision for our guild is, this may come as a surprise to people, the vision for our guild is not to top the rating charts. That would be awesome. It's definitely a goal, but it's not our vision. The vision for our guild is to make the world a better place. It may be on a small scale, but I think our members feel that their world is made a better place by this guild. We get a lot of applications, both rating and social, from people that have witnessed our environment through the streams, through pickup groups, and they feel like our environment will make their game more enjoyable. I think that contributes a lot to the quality of life of the people in our guild. I am a big fan of Zate's vision, especially the 3 pillars. On the social side, we focus a lot on the professionalism pillar. We make sure that people who are coming in understand that you don't swear in guild chat, you represent the guild well in trade chat, that sort of thing. But I think collaboration and progression are overlooked sometimes, and I think they're just as important. In order to make this an inclusive and safe environment, we need the equality that we describe in the professionalism pillar, but we also need to work together to keep the environment positive, collaborative, and challenge each other's progress in our our understanding of one another, our understanding that certain terms do not belong in the guild. Certain things are triggering for people. And rather than thinking that people are soft-skinned, we want to make the environment inclusive and welcoming for all people. I challenge everybody to have empathy and to really look at things from both points of view. We have conflict in the guild, and conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. We challenge people to resolve conflict in a healthy and productive way.
I think one of the best parts of the guild is the environment that we have. Like you said, not the progression. I mean, the progression's great, but being able to log on and enjoying your game and not being yelled at and cursed at, it just makes it so much more fun. And I've said before in a previous podcast when we had Zayd on that being an EK actually made me love the game again. I want to play and I want to be on. I mean, for several years, I just didn't care. I logged on for a few minutes, like once a month, and that was it. But I mean, obviously now I'm on a lot more because I'm in this community.
And I think that is the experience for a lot of our members. I think that's why Eternal Kingdom is such a large guild. And I mean, so large that we need 2 main guilds and 2 alt guilds. There's something that we're doing right for us to be this big. The challenge is to continue to guide that growth into a positive, constructive way where we don't outgrow our members and our environment and our community. Our challenge is to keep it that small family feeling where everybody still matters just as much as the next person.
Well, thanks, Belle, for joining the podcast tonight and for everything you do for Eternal Kingdom. It would not be the same without you here.
Yeah, thank you, Belle.
I'm really glad to be here. I really enjoy what I do for the guild and what the guild does for me. I can't imagine the last several years without Eternal Kingdom in my life. So I'm happy to be here, and I am always available to talk about social members or about how Endless Kingdom is doing, so people can feel free to look me up.
Thank you so much, EK, for tuning into our podcast. We will see you in February.